For some, shame isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's something that sticks around and shapes how we see ourselves. This is especially true for people who've experienced neglect, abuse, or other relational traumas in childhood. But why is this so? Well, children naturally think everything is about them. This is a normal part of how their minds develop. So when something bad happens, like being ignored or hurt, they don't have the perspective to say, "This isn't my fault." Instead, they assume, "This happened because I'm bad." It's the same with trauma. Children who have experienced such suffering often internalize it, turning the blame inward. For example, a child might think, "If only I were better, smarter, or more lovable, my parents would treat me differently." This belief becomes the foundation of their shame. Over time, children can also absorb the critical voices of the adults around them. If a parent or caregiver says things like, "You're a waste of space," or acts as though they believe it, a child might start using those same words against themselves. It's an attempt to stay one step ahead, thinking, "If I can just fix what's wrong with me, maybe they'll treat me better." At first, this might seem like a way to cope or survive, but it quickly becomes a habit and eventually their personality. As adults, this voice doesn't just disappear. Instead, it often turns into a harsh inner critic, constantly whispering or shouting things like, "You idiot," or "You're not good enough." That internal voice can feel relentless, driving us to work harder, be perfect, or give up altogether. This kind of self-criticism doesn't just affect your thoughts. It can take a toll on your body too. The constant pressure of being crap or needing to be better can push your nervous system into overdrive. This might show up as anxiety or even full-blown panic attacks because your body is stuck in a state of fight or flight, always bracing for the next judgment or failure. On the other hand, this internalized criticism can lead to depression. When life starts to feel like an uphill battle you can't win, it's easy to feel hopeless. You might think, "Why even bother? Nothing I do is ever good enough anyway." That sense of helplessness can make the world feel heavy and your place in it feel shaky and uncertain. But there's good news. These patterns need not be permanent. You can shift them by working with your shame exile, your inner critic protector, your anxious part, and any other parts that are starring in the show. For example, you might hear that inner voice saying, "You're going to mess this up," when you're about to try something new. Instead of ignoring it or pushing it away, you could take a moment to gently explore what it's really saying. Through practices like the guided meditations here on the Mind-Body Mountain, you can get to know this part of you better, understanding its fears, its hopes, and where it first came from. By listening to this voice with curiosity instead of judgment, you might discover that it developed during a time when you felt alone or unsafe. It likely took on the role of protecting you the only way it knew how, by keeping you hyper-aware of potential mistakes. Now, as your true self, the calm, compassionate, and capable part of you, you can show this inner critic something it's never experienced: sustained and regular support and reassurance. You can let it know, "I'm here now and I've got your back. You don't have to carry this burden alone anymore." As the true self, you're able to stay calm and confident, even in tough situations, and you can gently guide this inner part to trust you to drive, while allowing it to move into the back seat of the car. Over time, this approach helps the inner critic feel less scared and less intense. It begins to reduce because it doesn't need to do the job it once did. Instead of constantly bracing for failure, you'll start to feel more at ease and grounded, knowing you have a steady captain steering the ship. When dealing with a shame exile, the deeply hidden part of you carrying feelings of unworthiness or embarrassment, it helps to first acknowledge the role your inner critic has been playing. Often the critic tries to shield you from this painful shame by staying one step ahead, pushing you to avoid failure or judgment at all costs. It's been working hard to protect you, even if its methods can feel harsh or overwhelming. To begin, you might thank the inner critic for its efforts and gently ask it to take a break. In IFS, we often visualize this by asking the inner critic to go and sit in a waiting room, or we imagine a calming image, like an oak tree, that it can sit under for a while. This creates space for you to approach the shame exile directly, without interference. It's worth knowing that the shame exile may have other parts protecting it, perhaps a binge-eating part or a perfectionist part. With time, it is possible to talk to all of these parts and help them to unburden so that you can access the shame part. Once you have carried out this work with the protector parts, you can now, with kindness and curiosity, turn your attention to the exile. This is the part of you that carries those heavy feelings of shame. You might ask it gentle, open-ended questions like, when did you first start feeling this way? Or, what was happening in your life when you took on this role? You're giving it space to share its story, its fears, its pain, and its memories. For this work, I would recommend reviewing the podcast about 8 crucial questions to ask your parts. I'll link this and other useful episodes in the description below. So, back to where we were. As the exile begins to open up, you may start to see how alone and unsupported it felt in the moments that created its shame. This is where your true self, the calm, loving, and compassionate part of you steps in. You can say to the exile, I see you, and I'm here now. You don't have to carry this by yourself anymore. Imagine holding this part of you as you would a scared child, offering it the care and understanding it never received. You can reassure it. You are not unworthy. The things that happened to you were not your fault. I love you just as you are. This moment of connection can be profoundly healing for the exile, allowing it to feel supported, held and loved in a way it never has before. With time, as the exile feels more cared for and safe, it can start to release some of the pain and shame it's been holding on to. And as this happens, your inner critic may also begin to relax. It no longer has to work so hard to protect you from feelings of shame because it knows the exile is being cared for. This process doesn't just help you feel lighter inside, it can also lead to real changes in your life. For example, you might find it easier to take risks or be vulnerable with others, knowing that if feelings of shame arise, you have the tools to meet them with compassion. You might notice that old patterns of perfectionism or self-doubt begin to fade because you're no longer trying to outrun the shame. One day, you could find yourself in a situation that would have triggered your shame in the past, like making a mistake at work. And instead of spiraling, you pause and remind yourself, I'm human. Mistakes happen. Or, when someone criticizes you, instead of immediately feeling crushed, you might take a breath and respond calmly, thinking, this doesn't define me. I know my worth. These moments of growth come from the work of connecting with your inner parts, step by step. When you unburden a part like shame, your nervous system starts to feel safer and more balanced. The constant need to brace for judgment or rejection eases, stress and anxiety decrease, and your body can shift out of fight or flight mode. Over time, your nervous system becomes more resilient because it has increased capacity for what life throws at it, helping you handle challenges without feeling overwhelmed. This healing also goes one step further and helps you feel more grounded and present, opening the door to greater joy, stronger connections, and a steady sense of calm, even in situations that once felt difficult. I know that's all a lot to take in, so take your time and go back and listen again. There will feel like there are gaps in your knowledge, and that's understandable because one podcast doesn't cover everything. I'll make some links in the description to what I think are good episodes to help you with the shame. And try to remember that self-discovery is a journey, and it's important to take it one step at a time. That's how we learn and grow. As you move forward on your path, I'd love for you to share your experiences in the comments. Hopefully we can all learn from each other. Before I go, could I ask a quick favor? Every time you engage with a video from the Mind Body Mountain, it tells YouTube that people enjoy the content and they share it with more viewers. That means more healing for everyone. So if you could subscribe, share, like, save or comment, I'd be ever so grateful. Take care of yourself and your inner family, and I'll see you next time.